Hi, this is Bob Kulick, and you're listening to the fabulous Baco here on Cobras and Fire.
Welcome to the Cobras and Fire Interview. My name is Baco, and today I sit down and have a chat with the legendary Bob Kulick. More of a legendary figure behind the scenes. He's worked with quite a wide variety of artists, ranging from SpongeBob SquarePants to Meatloaf to Paul Stanley. And, of course, he's done a little bit with Kiss as well. We touch on all that. We learn how to properly assemble a tribute album, and we cap it all off with a discussion about Bob's new solo album, the first ever in his lengthy career. And it's called Skeletons in the Closet. It comes out September 15th. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Anyway, let's get right into it. Here's Bob Kulick.
Welcome to Cobras and Fire. My name is Baco, and I am here with the legendary Bob Kulick. It's okay if I call you legendary, right?
I guess I'll have to take it. Thank you very much, Baco.
You bet. This is a big moment for me. I'm a pretty big Kiss fan, and hopefully we can talk a little bit about that at some point. But I got one question I think everybody's dying to hear right out of the gate, and that is, what's the secret, Bob? How do you make a solo album in just under 50 years?
Well, you take your time to start off with, and then you search high and low for 23 artists who will allow you to use them on your record. And equal part, encouragement from my girlfriend, who introduced me to my co-producer, Bobby Ferrari, who had a great studio where we were able to record these 5 new songs. And, the fact that I was able to, with my former Balance bandmate, come up with 4 really good new songs that I could get the talent that I wanted to on there.
Right on. And actually, I got a bunch of questions related to that. But you have a very wide-spanning career. If it's okay with you, I thought I would touch on your career a little bit, and then we'd end the whole thing with digging right into the record. Is that cool?
Of course.
All right. Well, I'm not going to get into Kiss a whole lot because I think you've covered it quite a bit. But I do have a couple questions. Like, when you tried out for Kiss in 1973, I've heard a bunch of stories, and maybe because you were there, you could clarify something that might, help some of the nerds that will tune into this. And they've been told that there's like as many as like 50 people over a couple days, and just considering where they were at the time, that seems kind of high. Does that seem right? I mean, how did you, decide to, I'm going to go down and check them out? I mean, was it really just an ad in the paper?
They took an ad in the Village Voice. They may have, done some, talking to musician friends and seeing who else was available. But as far as I knew, it was mainly the ad in the Village Voice, and I highly doubt that there were 50 people. I highly doubt that there were even 10 or 12.
Okay.
I have no idea, though. You'd have to ask them. But now that you mention it, when I'm on the cruise, which, I don't know if you know, but my brother and I are going to be playing an hour set on the Kiss cruise coming up in November. So I'll ask Gene and Paul, so somebody asked me, an interview, so Baco, I'll be able to get your question. Gene said that they had 17 people or 8 people or whatever it is.
Right on. Well, I'll be looking to hear, I'll be definitely checking for that answer to pop up on Blabbermouth or something like that.
There you go.
Well, when you were there, now Ace was right after you. Is that that's totally accurate, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, this next question's kind of an oddball, and it's probably been asked to you, but I promise you, I've never actually heard it. It's just not that clever of a question. But at the time that you were trying out for him, did you have hair?
I did.
Yeah, okay. So, when did you have gone bald? Were you? Because I have only seen you just the full skull look and all that.
Well, I think there were pictures, for instance, with Meatloaf. If you Google the original Meatloaf band, you'll see my brother and I, and there I am with, my hair and some help hair.
Now, this was at the Loft, right? The famous Loft or whatever? the tryout, I'm saying?
Oh, for KISS, you mean?
Yes. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
they had, exactly. I think it was 23rd Street, West Side, one of those places.
No, I just get this. What was the scene like? Were you carrying like a half stack up a couple flights of steps with Peter or something? Or
no, usually at these places, they had gear, so I just brought a guitar.
Oh, okay. So
and that was that. Just plugged in and played.
All right. Well, I know. You how did you stay in touch with him kind of between then and like the 1978 when you kind of stepped in and played quite a bit on the Alive 2 studio tracks?
I became friends with Paul and Gene, and we would go out and see bands. And
so like almost immediately?
Not necessarily immediately, but within a reasonable amount of time they started playing gigs, and like went down and checked them out, and went and hung out, and next thing just hanging out with them as friends. Then next thing I know, they make it or making it, and now I'm being asked to play. So it was just one of those synchronistic things. It just was meant to be. I have no idea why, but this is what happened.
When about would you have jumped in with Meatloaf then? Was that right after Bat Out of Hell, or
jumped in with them, you mean?
No, with Meatloaf. So, because I think Bat Out of Hell was mid-'70s, right around that same time, if I recall.
Bat Out of Hell was like 78.
Okay, so that was probably just after, I assume that was after then the Alive 2 recordings he did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
During the Meatloaf thing, I was doing Paul's solo record, 79.
All right. Oh, okay. Well, your bio says you played on Unmasked. That was news to me. What did you play on there?
Didn't play on Unmasked. Co-wrote Naked City.
Just a co-write then?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I love Naked City. I guess I did see your name on there. So.
Yeah.
And then you were on the Killers tracks, all four of them, if I got that right.
I believe so.
Yeah. You mentioned at least you're in the Eric Carr book. It sounds like maybe from the way you described it, KISS was under a little bit of pressure for the first time in their life because things were not going up anymore. Now it was kind of taken down, and they might have taken some of that out on their, critiquing of your playing at the time. Is that fair?
No, I don't think that was the reason. I think the reason that they became more difficult to please, bearing in mind that throughout anything that I did with them, both Paul and Gene had to like what I did. That's a tall order to please two people. Usually it's
sure
the producer is happy and everybody else gets used to it. In this case, they both had to be pleased. And I think what had happened by the time we'd gotten to the KISS Killers stuff was that a young guitar player named Eddie Van Halen had come out and kind of changed the sonic landscape.
All right, that's fair.
So they were trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And hence, can you whip out some of this wang bar stuff? You got some other licks that would be flashy like Eddie, without referencing, like we need licks like Running with the Devil or something. There was nothing like that ever said, but it was obvious that, I had already played my, shall we say, bag of tricks on the first recordings. And so for the KISS Killers and stuff like that, I had to try other tricks, of which you referenced one in All American Man. The little pulling of the string for the first lick. It was just your left hand played a little trill, and then your right hand came around and pulled up the string on the fretboard, and that's how that happened. The trick that I learned from the late, great, legendary guitar player Dick Wagner.
Oh, right on. Nice little homage. And for anybody that is interested, there is a video that shows Bob explaining exactly that and showing you at the same time. And, like I said, it was a life changer for me at the age of 46. So after, Ace was basically out of the picture by the time you were doing those Killers tracks, right?
No, not exactly.
I mean, I know he was still technically in the band, but why wasn't he involved in them?
Because they were moving to make a change.
Okay, that's kind of where I'm going. Was there any talk of? Were you interested in the gig? Was there any talk of bringing you on board at that time?
No, because I'd already advanced to the point where I couldn't be in the band.
Oh,
so known. It was down to by having other things that I was doing that people knew me from, and it just seemed like they needed some fresh blood, and that's when I suggested Bruce.
So before Creatures of the Night, you actually suggested Bruce. That was one of my questions coming up.
I had, I always mentioned to them, there's my brother, and they checked out a bunch of people at that time as well, and wound up with Vinnie Crisano, who was there being checked out while I was there.
So did you get to meet Vinnie at all? Get much of a read on him as a person?
Not much of a read, but yeah, we hung out for a couple of afternoons or evenings in the studio.
I don't go too far down the rabbit hole with Vinny, but there's been a lot of discussion over the years, of his relationship with Gene and Paul. I mean, did it seem that, because Gene and Paul, of course, have their side, and frankly, they've been sued enough that they almost deserve to be a little guarded when it comes to talking about him. In your opinion, is what I'm asking, did it seem that he was this kind of a shady little character that they've kind of penned in postscript about him, or was it just really tough to tell?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult to say, not knowing. But great guitar player and a talented songwriter. So, and the guy had a look. So we certainly understand why they took him. After he joined the band, what happened, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Sure, okay. What about Eric Carr? Did you spend much time with him?
Spent some time with him during those recordings. He would come and pick me up in L.A. when I was doing some recordings out there for Kiss Killers. We'd go get something to eat and go to the studio. So we did spend some time together. Great guy, super talented.
Any fun or funny stories about Eric from that time, or in general, really?
He was a fun-loving guy who had a great time. He fit perfectly into the band. And when my brother finally joined the band, he was a huge help acclimating my brother to the band.
Oh, that's great. You're right, though, when you say he was a great fit. He really was. He was a great fit. He's a little underrated for that time. I thought he had a much bigger influence for the what happened drum wise. Like look basically from like '83 on, the way drummers were playing and setting up their rigs and what they were doing on stage. I know Eric kind of followed a pretty flamboyant drummer in Peter on stage, but he kind of introduced the double bass as far as this giant kit and stuff. And I know that there's other examples, but a lot of these kind of like rock drummers kind of followed it after him, and it doesn't seem like he gets a lot of notice for kind of being there, other than, there's like a Neil Peart who had the giant kit, but I mean, Neil Peart's a different world, so.
Yeah, but I think, for whatever reason, Kiss was separated from other bands because their stage setup was so much a show, like a Broadway show or a Vegas show, whereas most bands were just bands that just got up there and played. I mean, if you look at the videos of Led Zeppelin, even on a big stage, they didn't spread out.
Oh, yeah.
They did not spread out. And the drums were on the floor or on a small riser. They knew that to be able to play well together, they needed to be huddled together. They needed to be able to hear each other properly, organically, and to be able to be within looking somebody in the eyes, Whereas Kiss was the exact opposite. People are flying through the air, and the heat coming off the stage from the flamethrowers is like World War II. It's just like, the costumes and the stage sets. It's a whole other thing. So drums going up in the air and all of what started to happen. Eric had a lot to do with it, but because he was in Kiss, it was a little different.
And you just touched on something. I'm probably not going to talk to somebody as immersed in a long career as you. Have advancements in like technology helped with that? The PAs as far as like earpieces and stuff made it easier for bands to be tight and sound good, but spread out a little bit.
Maybe live the in-ears and all of that has helped people out as far as the singing goes and stuff like that. Probably so.
Even like,
but the technology has hurt the recording side of things
absolutely
by allowing people who are not up to grade talent-wise skate through because their vocals can be fixed. And,
anybody you'd like to mention?
No, there's nobody I'd like to mention. It's just part of